Jordan, let's get back to this season. We've talked about the overarching issues with this Clemson football team and, more importantly, this Clemson football program. But make no mistake about it, we got 4 more games left this season, and the next one on the docket is none other than Florida State, coming to Death Valley, South Carolina, Memorial Stadium. And we're going to battle it out. This Florida State team's coming in. They started the season off with a bang. Everybody remembers week 1, them battling it out and basically blowing Alabama off the football field, physically dominating an Alabama football team in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time. And a lot of people coming out of week 1 didn't really know what to think. Everybody's laughing at Alabama. Everybody's like, man, Florida State must be really good. Or is Alabama just terrible and they've fallen apart and Caitlin DeBoer doesn't know what he's doing and, blah, 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 blah. Well, turns out, Jordan, Alabama's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
They turned their season around. Turns out Florida State might not be very good. They're sitting at 4-4 right now. No one would have predicted that after the week 1 that they had. But here they sit at 4-4. We're at 3-5. The battle of the bad football teams right now. So Jordan, your thoughts? They come to Death Valley. Your thoughts on this Florida State team and how you see this game playing out Saturday? It's actually, I don't know if you know this, Jordan. It's a night game.
It is.
Did Clemson actually get a night game?
Yeah,
we'll see another night game all year.
Yeah, I mean,
somehow,
ACC network, but still.
Yes, well, that's about as good as we get at this point. At least we're not on the CW. Okay.
Yeah,
we could be on the CW. That's probably where we should be. But we're playing Florida State. It still is 2 big brands, so I guess it makes sense. 7:00 time slot on the ACC network. Jordan, tell me about this Florida State team.
Yeah, this Florida State team, I mean, they've been such a fascinating team to watch this year because in a lot of respects, I mean, they're clearly better than they were last year. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, they just from a competence on both sides of the ball, they're significantly better than they were last year. This offseason, there were a lot of there was a lot that had to change for Mike Norvell and the staff and the roster, and they did a lot in the transfer portal to try to address those needs. And I think largely, they hit on some guys, they missed on others, but overall, I think they did improve the roster. They also it wasn't just roster changes; they also made staff changes. Obviously, bringing in Gus Malzahn to be the offensive coordinator, and Tony White from Syracuse to be the defensive coordinator. And, I think, largely offensively, they've been a successful team. They're number 1 in total offense in the country with just over 510 yards per game. They are a balanced attack, and, they are a team that's going to, they're going to want to run the football first and foremost. That's Gus Malzahn's MO. He's going to get creative in the run game. They're also going to be a heavy RPO team, and they're going to take their shots when they can. I mean, that's Gus Malzahn to a T. Bringing in Thomas Castellanos, I think obviously has been a net positive. I think he's been stable. He's been steady. A lot of the season hasn't been perfect. But offensively, they do have some really, really interesting pieces that they've been able to work with. They've been pretty explosive. They've been one of the better. Thomas Castellanos has actually been one of the better deep ball throwers in college football this year. I think people kind of look at him and don't think that he has much of he has much arm talent because they just think of how much he runs, and he's built like a running back, but. Mm-hmm. He's been pretty accurate throwing the football downfield, and they've been pretty explosive in the passing game especially when they've been able to establish the run with Usman Kroma and those other backs. But I think that's one of the things that scares me about this Florida State offense is with what we've seen, especially as of late with this Clemson defense. When it's very easy. This Gus Malzahn offense is designed to create coverage busts. And they're going to put your DBs in conflict at times. The RPO, like I said, they are going to be a heavy RPO team. That's what they do. It's not an overly complicated, elaborate passing scheme in terms of their play action game. But when you're sucked in, when your safeties and your second level defenders are so keyed in on the run and worried about Florida State, running the football. I mean, it's very easy to get beat over the top. And with how we've seen these DBs play as of late, I think that's a real possibility with some of the weapons they have on the field. I think their best receiver overall has been Deuce Robinson. He is a dude. I mean, just every bit of he's got to be 6'5", 6'6". Almost built like a tight end, but he's a load, man, to deal with. He's one of their best big play threats, contested catch, can do basically anything you ask him to do. He's going to be a tough cover. I don't really think you have anybody for him, and that really does concern me in this football game. And with his ability, he's a guy that like I said, it's very easy to just throw the ball up to him, and more often than not, he's going to come down with it. Another guy that I think is worth mentioning, a guy that has really, really come along towards the back half of the season, is Mekhi Danzy. Elite track speed, probably one of the fastest players in college football. He is, with how slow your DBs have shown to be this year, another guy that concerns me a ton. They use him a lot. They used him, a decent bit in gadget plays earlier in the season. I think they realized that wasn't really necessarily his game. I think when you just let him run and get matchups on DBs and just let him run past guys, he's been pretty good. And so, like I said, he's really come on towards the back half of the season. I think he's developing into a really nice receiver. I think those two guys, I think, are the most concerning, but they have a stable of other guys. Jalen Lucas is a guy that they have used primarily as a gadget player. Another guy that can really run. They're gonna use him in jet sweeps and screens and end arounds, things like that. And you got to come down and tackle. He's not a very big guy, but he can move. And I think that's kind of the theme with this Florida State offense. They have a lot of guys that can run. And so that concerns me in this game with how inconsistent you've been on the back end. You gotta cover, man, and you gotta be on the same page, or otherwise you will get beat. Like I said, Castellanos has hit on those plays more often than he hasn't this year. They have been very good throwing the ball down the field. There's not too much in the intermediate game. They're really, if it's not a screen or a short RPO, they're taking a shot. It's kind of a little bit or a lot, and nothing in between with this offense. So that really does, that kind of concerns me with just how this defense has been playing. I don't think this is the best matchup.
Brother, this offense concerns me a lot.
Yeah.
There's pretty much nothing about this offense that doesn't concern me. The way they run the football, averaging 241 yards a game, 5.3 yards per attempt. That's not good. That does not spell a recipe for success for the Tigers this year. They're averaging 270 yards passing on the season as well. So again, a very balanced team. You mentioned the RPO, the athleticism of Castellanos and what he can do creating outside of the pocket with his legs. Not only that, he can throw the football. So if you get caught with your eyes in the backfield in the RPO game, he's going to make you pay for it. We saw that last week against Duke time and time again. That should ring alarm bells for all Clemson Tiger fans preparing to watch this football game on Saturday. Their ability to throw the ball and be explosive, along with their ability to run the ball very, very effectively at running the football. They kind of, they went on a 4-game losing streak there and kind of lost their way. But Wake Forest might have allowed them to get their mojo back last week. They ran the ball very well against Wake Forest, physically dominated that game, and basically splattered them all over the field. Not a good way for them to walk in to Death Valley. They were coming off a bye week, got their mojo back. Now they're walking into Death Valley again. A very competent, very good running game. That does not spell, a recipe for success for this Clemson Tigers defense this year. We're not particularly good there. We're especially not good on the back end, especially as of late, and they can attack us from both ways. I honestly think it's going to be a long day for this Clemson Tiger defense, especially if they show up and play like they did last week. And I don't know that they've showed me anything that would expect me that they do come to play any different way. Other than maybe they find some pride, some self-awareness, some I don't know, some fortitude to get out there and play. I don't know. This is an offense that could do a lot of damage to this Clemson Tiger defense, particularly because of how they are playing at this point in the season.
Yeah, and it kind of raises the question. You're like, I mean, what do you do? I mean, if you're a defense, if you're a Clemson defense that has had the struggles it's had, I mean, what is the game plan here? Because
I don't know. Do you sell out to stop the run and leave the back end vulnerable? I mean, do you because they're averaging 240 yards a game.
Yeah.
So what's the realistic chance that you're actually going to stop their running game? With this Clemson Tiger defense, that's not a very good chance.
No.
It's not.
And
they got multiple running backs they're going to throw at you. They're not just like
no. I mean, Chroma is going to be a stud as a true freshman. I mean, he's already shown a lot of promise. Gavin Sawchuk, Keziah Holmes, like they've got guys that can run the football, and so it's I don't know what you do, because I mean, obviously you got to keep it Thomas Castellanos in the pocket. I mean, ultimately your chances are better if you don't give him the opportunity to scramble and make plays with his legs. But he's been a worse quarterback when blitzed than when not. But like that doesn't with this team. I mean, if you're going to blitz, it means less guys to cover on the back end. And
Mr. Back end's got to hold up, and then if he escapes the pocket, your back end's definitely not going to hold up, and he's going to find somebody downfield for probably an explosive play.
Yeah.
So if you are
as many guys as they have that can run,
especially with the speed that they have on the outside. So if you are going to rush them, you're going to have to be disciplined and keep them inside that and kind of squeeze them within the pocket. Because if you let them get outside, that's going to lead to more explosive plays for Florida State.
Yeah. Shoot, and I completely forgot they still have Squirrel White still. So those of you that remember, I mean, I think he's dealing with an injury. So I mean, he hasn't played as much this season. But I mean, those of you that remember the Orange Bowl a few years ago, I mean, when he's healthy, he can play. So, I mean, that's the thing. I think this is a Florida State offense that just kind of has a little bit of too much for you. I'm like, what do you do? I mean, I think, I haven't even talked about their tight end, Landon Thomas. I think, he's kind of been up and down this season, but, I think kind of like Mekhi Danzy, he's made some more plays in the back half of the season as they've, I think as they've realized that, what they had hoped for after the Bama game and kind of the aspirations they had for themselves are clearly not going to come to pass. They started to play some of their younger guys. With Norvell and Gus Malzahn, I mean, they're going to have something for Clemson. They're going to scheme some things up, and they're going to, especially watching that Duke film. I think they're going to attack you down the field pretty often, especially since they know that Clemson knows they can run the football. they know they're gonna have some opportunities because Clemson is gonna dedicate some resources to stopping the run. So I'm not optimistic about this matchup. Just being like I feel about as bad about this matchup as I did SMU. In terms of just the defense against this offense and the team speed that Florida State has versus what you have defensively. It just doesn't look – it's not looking great for me, man.
No, it's not. It's not a great matchup defensively. One, because they're so balanced and how effective they are running the football. But two, it's just the way that Clemson's secondary just played. I got no faith in this defense stopping anybody. Just to be completely honest. But let's go ahead and roll over to the other side of the football, Jordan. Talk about Clemson's offense versus this Florida State defense. Tell us about this Florida State defense. What are they going to bring to the table Saturday night in the Valley?
Yeah, I certainly feel a little bit better about this matchup than I do about Clemson's defense against Florida State's offense. Defensively for Florida State, the thing that, watching them this season, it's kind of been it's kind of been a mess in a lot of ways. It kind of reminds me a little bit of not quite. They haven't had performances quite as bad as Clemson has, but I do think they have they have some noticeable issues. I think their worst game of the season was that Pitt game. I mean, that was rough. I going back and watching that. I think with this defense, it's a group that they have a lot of guys that they've either brought in through the transfer portal or guys that have kind of been in the program a little bit. But I don't think they're particularly great at any one thing. When I look at them up front, I think they're pretty thin on the defensive line. I think that's been a pretty noticeable aspect of their season this year, and I think it's kind of limited what they've been able to do. In Tony White's first year, I think Tony White is a great defensive coordinator. But just watching them defensively, I don't think they have the bodies up front to be able to be as multiple as they want to be in Tony White's defense. I don't think they've played that well, especially at defensive end. I think their tackles are pretty decent, but like they defensive end has been really kind of a mess this year in terms of the depth and just the amount of quality guys they can play there. And then, on the second level, linebacker, I think has honestly been pretty bad. It's kind of shockingly bad. Some of those guys I thought would be playing a lot better, but it's really been kind of a mess at times this year. I think it really hurt them in that Pitt game, containing Mason Heinschel and other quarterbacks this year that have shown the ability to run. They haven't played particularly well against. Makes you wonder, if with Cade and how another week removed from the injury and potentially is he a little bit mobile than he was last week? That could be a good thing. I just watching them defensively, I think that's been probably the biggest weakness on their team is linebacker. They have not played very well, and so I think that's a group that you can exploit. I think there's some matchups that can be had here. I think this could be a big day for the tight ends if you remember that you have good tight ends. That'd be nice this week, and then on the back end, I think they have some guys that can play. They haven't been consistent either, but I think Jerry Wilson is a guy that I think he's kind of tailed off a little bit towards the back half of the season, but he's been largely their best defensive back. Earl Little Jr. is a guy that's been in the program a long time. He's kind of been up and down this year. Edwin Joseph at safety as well. Like I think there's some guys that have that'll get some looks on NFL draft boards. So they have some playmakers on the back end, but it kind of hasn't really come together completely this year. and so, you kind of get why I think this defense isn't really great at any particular thing. I don't think they're terrible, but they are a very clearly flawed defense. And I think, if Clemson did learn anything about themselves last week, and they are able to carry some of the things they were able to do last week over into this game, I do think they'll be able to score some points. Certainly, I think they can move the ball on this defense. They don't really have any players that particularly scare me. I mean, I think they have a few guys, a couple NFL guys on the interior of the defensive line, and some guys in the secondary, but they're not an overly talented defense, and they're not an overly deep defense. And I think that's the biggest thing, is when they have to rotate, things get a little dicey, because they don't have the numbers everywhere. It's just, and that's kind of where you get when you have not recruited the high school ranks at a decent level. But I'm throwing stones from a glass house with Clemson, at least in terms of the depth aspect of things on defense. So it's going to be interesting. I think this is a game where we could see both teams score a decent amount of points. That's kind of what I'm getting from this. Getting from this matchup when I look at both of these teams, and it's but knowing that I said that, now we're going to come back on we're going to come back here like Saturday night, and we're going to be talking about a 20-17 ball game or whatever. So that's just how football works.
That is how football works, but I kind of see it going the same way you kind of see it going. I really like Clemson's offense in this game. I think they can, I think they found some stuff last week, particularly in the running game. Obviously, getting Gideon Davison involved, I think, was a huge win for the Tigers last week, even though they ultimately ended up losing the game to Duke. And just some of the tunnel screens and stuff that you saw last week, and that perimeter blocking looked really good last week. The TJ Moore. Whatever it was that a 70-yard touchdown, whatever it was.
Yeah.
On that tunnel screen right there with great blocking, and he just kind of, housed it. Just the slant routes, all that kind of stuff. Like I really think Clemson figured some stuff out last week, and Garrett Riley probably called his best game of the season. So I'm hoping that continues. Do not abandon the run the football. Use your running backs. One of the positives from last week is we had was it 30 carries by running backs last week, Jordan?
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Hard to believe.
What a novel idea, man. Run the running backs. Like Clemson has run the football this year. It's just not always the running backs, which has been driving me crazy. But last week, that was rectified. Hopefully that continues into this week. I think it could be another big week for the offense. Hopefully they keep the momentum. Hopefully Cade Klubnik is a week better with the ankle, even more mobile, feeling even more comfortable back there, still making good decisions, not escaping the pocket too early, standing in there, doing some good things. And I think there's some things to be had on this Florida State defense. I think there's some yards to be had. There's some points to be had. Like I said, it could end up being a shootout between the two offenses, and who makes that mistake first. Is it going to be Cade? Is it going to be Tony Castellanos? Who's it going to be? Hopefully Clemson's defense can create some pressure and force Castellanos into some bad decisions. He has done that. He is capable of making those poor decisions. So we will see. But I got a lot more faith in the offense heading into this game than the defense, which is probably not a good thing. It means it's probably going to flip and the offense is going to play terrible, like you said, because 2025 Clemson, that's why.
2025 Clemson, man. That explains it all.
Hold my beer. The year of hold my beer.
Yeah. And it's, hey, the good thing is, obviously the record for most losses and most home losses in the season is on the line. But good thing is Florida State did get their first ACC win in over a year last week. So, you don't have to worry about having the dishonorable distinction of being their first ACC win. That's maybe that's a feather in Clemson's cap. That's a sign that they're going to win the football game on Saturday. I don't know, but this is going to be a fun matchup. Listen, I still enjoy playing Florida State, and it's always a big game if you can win it. And I think both teams would really like to come out of here with a win. I especially listen, man. If that'll be something. If you lose this game on Saturday and Mike Norvell is let go as Florida State coach, that's two fired coaches that you lost to in a season. That's that'd be something that'd just be another great they're really stacking the resume at this point. Like if you lose the game, so
they're doing it big time. Clemson is we're all about setting the records for all the wrong reasons this year.
They're all in
for all the wrong reasons. We're all in on it. We're about it. 2025 is the reverse year. We're gonna set the records for all the wrong reasons. It's the hold my beer year. It's the It's the whatever year. All right, Jordan. We talked about the matchup. We've broke it down. Kind of talked a little bit of how we see it going on both sides of the ball. Now it's prediction time. We were split last week. Are we going to be split for 3 weeks in a row?
Maybe. I wonder.
Maybe. We've been split for 2 weeks in a row. We'll see if we'll be split for 3 weeks in a row. But again, remind everybody of the lines. Clemson is a 2.5-point favorite at home to the Florida State Seminoles. Over under for this game is set at 56.5. The ESPN matchup predictor, if you care about that sort of thing, has Florida State winning.
Sounds about right. This is a game that honestly it's a little hard to read. A lot of it's going to depend on what the mindset is for both teams. Florida State is coming off of a really nice win, blowout win over Wake Forest. Clemson obviously coming off of a heartbreaker. What is the mindset of both teams? Does Florida State kind of, is this a situation where they found something and that they can build on? Or is it like a situation where they kind of regress to the mean of what they've been this year? And same thing with Clemson. It's like, they've lost this many home games in a row, or they do. Is it gonna happen this Saturday? And coming off a heartbreaker, are they going to respond, or are they, or is this going to be a loss that turns into two? Really hard to say at this point, but when I think about this football game, I think there's a lot of matchups that concern me regarding Clemson's defense, and that makes it tough, especially considering what we saw last week. But I don't feel good picking Clemson to lose a fifth home game in a season. And against my better judgment, I'm picking them to win the football game on Saturday. Now, again, kind of like how I felt against Duke, I don't really have any strong reasons to think they win this football game, considering what we've seen. And I certainly don't think it's going to be easy, because it's never easy with this football team. But I can't pick this team to lose a record amount of games at home. It doesn't feel right. It's a stupid reason, because it doesn't mean it's not impossible. But I'm going to go with my gut and say that this is the one this is the one they get before they they got Louisville next week. That'll be fun to talk about. I'm going to go Clemson 36. No, I don't like 36. No, Clemson 35, Florida State 30. Sure, why not? I think both teams will score a good amount of points in this game, but I'm going to give Clemson the edge, and they're going to cover for the first time against a Power 4 opponent. So, don't really have a strong don't feel a lot of strong conviction in that prediction, but I'm going to let it rock one more time. If they fail me this week, I'm not picking them to win again the rest of the year. I'm even against Furman. I'm gonna just say Clemson's losing. So yeah, it's do or die, man. This is for pride. You can't lose this many games at home, and just it's Clemson football, man. Have some pride.
Yeah, look, absolutely. This has been a tough game for me to kind of predict. I picked Clemson to lose last week. Ultimately, I was right, but not in the way that I thought I would be right. And for a big portion of that game, I thought Clemson was going to pull it out. I was wrong. So you guys get your score predictions into the comment section. Let us know how you think this game is going to play out. And honestly, I was going to pick Florida State to win this game. But I'm going to pick Clemson, and I'm going to give you guys my rationale for picking Clemson. Although during the preview of this game, I just rattled off all the reasons this Florida State team is going to have their way with this Clemson defense. I have to believe that there's at least a good portion of this defense that is absolutely embarrassed by what they put onto the field last week. I have to believe that if that's true, then they're going to try to do something to rectify that this week and not let it happen for a second week in a row. And because of that, I'm going to roll with the Tigers because I do think the Clemson offense is going to get theirs in this game. I'm going to go Clemson 34, FSU 31.
I like it. We're pretty close in score.
Clemson can't lose this game.
No,
they can't. One, they can't lose to Florida State because forget Florida State. Two, you can't lose a fifth home game, as you've mentioned numerous times in this episode, Jordan. You can't lose a fifth home game. Like, we might have to retire the name Death Valley if you lose a fifth home game. In all seriousness, we can't even argue with LSU fans at this point. It's a pointless argument.
No.
And it pains me to say that because I hate that. But yeah, and just from a pride standpoint, just from, Tom Allen, brother, we need you this week. You got to figure out something. You got to figure out how to stop the bleeding this week on defense. If you're as good as a defensive coordinator as we thought you were coming in, you got to find a way to stop the bleeding this week. You got what you got on defense. I get it ain't perfect. But you got to find a way to stop the bleeding this week. And I think Clemson will get it done. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. I don't think it's going to be an easy game. Me and Jordan's blood pressure is probably going to be up. But I do think the Tigers get it done this weekend. Hopefully we're right. I don't know. We'll see.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
We're back in lockstep. So maybe this is well, I mean, we're either going to go down with the ship or we're going to look like geniuses. So
we haven't given up yet, but I'm with you, Jordan. If they let us down Saturday, I'm literally not picking them to win another game this year.
You can't justify it.
I won't pick them to win another game this year.
Maybe
Furman. That includes Furman. I will pick them to lose to Furman. I swear to God. I'm not even joking. I will pick them to lose every single game for the rest of the year if they lose this game.
Man.
5 losses in Death Valley, they deserve to lose the rest of their games.
Yeah.
They honestly they should just start practicing and just like forfeit the rest of the game. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, it is what I mean. I got to believe that with the night game and all of that. I have to believe Clemson's got one more. They've got one good performance in them this season. Like
They got to, right?
I don't think it's going to translate at all to next week against Louisville. Spoiler alert. But I do think that you have one. You have to have one in you. There's no way that you're gonna drop every single game this year to Power Four opponents at home. I mean, just
Oh man,
there's just no way. There's just
this
no
is their
way.
last chance, right?
This is their last chance.
This is their last chance, Jordan,
Yeah,
to win a Power Four game at home. Think about that.
it's sobering, man.
Wow. My, how the mighty have fallen. Wow.
You've lost 6 straight home games to begin with. Like it's well, 6 straight power. You've lost 6 straight Power Four home games. Power Four home games to begin with, and you've lost what, 3 in a row?
3 in a row. 3 straight games at home.
Three straight games at home. Yeah. So
this will be 4 if you lose this one.
yeah. Crazy, man.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.